So welcome to Spring. We're going to start on time. This is not well, nothing new, but you need to be aware of those policies and apply a bit to those policies. So please read it and please comply. Another not really well, something you need to read. I'm not going to pass too much time because it's Wednesday. If you're remote, obviously you need to connect, but if you're on site, you also need to connect to the light tool to be part of the meeting and to be able to be to the queue. And if you want to be to the mic queue, you need to click to go to the queue. The minutes will be taken collaboratively with the tool, so you're welcome to contribute, especially if you go to the mic and comment. At least check your name on comments to check they are correctly reflected.
Good morning. Nothing. Wow. So I know you didn't get your coffee because this is such an exciting session that you don't need coffee. But you know, so we're going to get to the really exciting part now. As you all know, we have been working on the rechartering of the working group. We have already had 2 discussions on the list, and we had an on-site discussion at the last meeting in Vancouver. So we're not going to go through a charter again today. In fact, we already gave the charter to the AD, and as you can see down at the bottom, it is scheduled to be looked at by the IESG on November the 21st. If any of you have any comments on the charter, you can click that link, and you can direct the comments to Jim, our AD. If someone doesn't know Jim, there you go. And of course, please copy the Spring list if you have any comments on this. You have seen in the charter that what we're doing is we're simplifying some of the text, right? We're taking the charter that we already had and we simplified it a little bit. The other big change that we have highlighted throughout all the discussions is that we have no work items listed in the charter, right? Yes, okay, good. So what the charter actually says is that sentence over there, the working group will manage its specific work items based on working group engagement and adoption. In other words, if you want to know what the working group is working on, just go to the data tracker and you can see all the documents that the working group has adopted, right? Those are the work items for the working group. And as adoption happens, we can add more documents to the list, of course, and only if there is working group engagement. This is a working group, right? There's a group of people who work together, right? It's not just some authors and the chairs and then the AD. It is supposed to be all of us working together on getting things done. So what does working group engagement mean? It means that there is interest in the working group, in the content, that there is participation, that people have commented, that some people have said, yeah, I like that, but maybe what about this? Or you forgot security, or I don't like the encoding, or my use case. Or maybe you like it so much that you feel compelled to get up and say, I'm going to bounce my network tonight so I can get this functionality out there today, because this is so great. This is not an invitation to your friends and family to come to the meeting and to send +1 on all the emails. This is an invitation for you to please read the documents, not just look at the presentations, which are pretty with pictures and everything else, but that you read the documents and you make thoughtful comments. Right? Yes? Yes. Great. So we're going to post this and the next 2 pages I'm going to show on the Spring Wiki and in our policies section so that you are reminded every time how we're working which is how we should work, right? The working group should be interested in things, and then we work on those things. We're going to check working group engagement at adoption and at working group last call. So we expect our reviews, right? As I said, reviews are not just an email that says, hey, I read it and I support it. We want to see something in there. Yeah, I read it and I love the encoding, or this is great for my network because blah. And hopefully not all networks are the same. So there are different reasons why people like this, or why people don't like it, or why it doesn't fit in their deployment. It has been my experience that no draft is perfect. Even my own drafts, especially my own drafts. No draft is perfect. So it is never, I've never seen a case where a draft is ready. You have seen not just comments on the list, you see comments by the chairs, you see comments by the ADs, you see comments by everyone else in the IESG, you see the RFC editor fixing things until auth 48, and then the thing gets published, and then there's errata after that. So it's never perfect. So please don't tell me I read the draft and it's perfect, because there's always something that we can find in the drafts. Maybe something's not clear. Maybe something needs to be better explained. Maybe you didn't consider a specific operational thing. Maybe you forgot magically to put security considerations. Maybe you are requesting code points, but you didn't put them in the IANA section. Many things like that. Please read the documents. And please comment on the list about those documents. So we want to see reviews, we want to see technical discussions. Ideally, those discussions are going to be, yeah, I didn't like this. And then the other person is going to say, yeah, but did you look at it this way? And then we have a discussion. Maybe we get to a consensus on whether it's good or bad. Maybe we get to a modified solution. Maybe there's some suggestions on how to improve the text, things like that, right? So we want to see discussions. That's how we are going to tell, in general, whether there is working group engagement and the working group is interested in the work. Because if the working group is not interested in the work, then why are we working on it, right? So we're expecting people to volunteer to review drafts. Again, we prefer that it is not your friends and family who review the documents, but someone else, right? So volunteer. We might, prod the working group a little bit and say, hey, volunteers, whatever. But it is up to you, the working group, specifically the authors, to make this move, right? Yes, can I get, yes? Everyone get up and dance or something, no? Okay, at least some people nodded. That's not what I would call working group engagement, but at least we have the opposite example. It's good that you're laughing at my jokes. That I call working group engagement. And no, they're not jokes. You should all be serious. Especially the AD back there who's laughing, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna look at reviews. We're gonna look at technical discussions. We're going to change the slides. Do you have to be there? No, I think we want to go back one. There we go. So you know what we're going to look for at working group adoption. Please don't ask for adoption until you know there has been working group engagement. So sometimes we see draft version 4, it's being presented here for the first time. And at the end, you say, well, the draft has been stable for 4 revisions, and we're going to ask for adoption. But there has been no discussion on the list. Well, we're not going to do anything about that draft. So please ask for adoption when you know there's working group engagement. You can, of course, ask us, and we can tell you, well, there's been nothing on the list. Please talk to the list. You are going to then want to engage the working group. Please maybe ask them questions. Tell them what your draft is about. Why should they be as excited as you are? when I see emails that say, hey, I just published a draft, please read it, that doesn't make me want to read anything, because I don't know what the draft is about. I don't know why I should care. I don't know why it affects my network. But if you tell me, here's a draft, and I'm proposing to change how you walk the SRH because I want to walk it backwards so I can do ECN to the source or something, then that gets me thinking, hey, maybe this is a bad idea, right? And I want to go read it. Not that I have bad ideas, it was just an example, of course. Maybe then I want to go read it and make comments. That's what we want. So please tell people why your draft is important. Don't just copy the abstract, because anyone can go read the abstract. Tell them, I'm changing this, and your network is going to be 10,000 times better. Okay, maybe that's interesting. You want people to be engaged. So we are not going to do what we did before, which is when everyone asks for adoption, we put you in a queue, and then us and chairs have to go read the draft and figure out if the draft is good. And then, because even though we're part of the working group, that is not just our job. This is the job of the working group. Okay, I feel like, I don't know, talking to my kids or something, and they sometimes nod, they just look at me and figure I'm going to give them their allowance or something. But okay. At working group last call, we're going to do something similar, right? We're going to look for engagement. Obviously, we're going to look at the history, right? In other words, if the working group was excited at the beginning, ideally things are going to move because there's excitement, right? There's interest in the working group, so things are going to move. Also, we're going to change how we work, because the way we've been doing it until now is the authors tell us, we're ready for working group last call. We, again, the chairs, now go read the draft and figure out if we think it's good or not. Again, the working group should do that. So please engage the working group. Adoption doesn't mean they're going to publish anything. Adoption means the working group is interested in this work. We want to work on it. So please work. And by the time we get to working group last call, it should be obvious that there is interest in the working group, and it should be relatively easy to move things forward, because ideally all the issues that people brought up, maybe during or around adoption or after work, or after the work was adopted, they have been discussed on the list. There have been reviews, and we are ready to go. So what we're going to do at working group last call is, if we believe there is, if we, the chairs, believe there's working group engagement, we're going to assign a shepherd who will, it can be one of us, but ideally it would be one of you. And when the shepherd tells us the issues that have already been brought up have been addressed, then we'll consider starting the working group last call. So questions, comments? Who wants to give me a good example of working group engagement? Engagement on this? No one? Okay, so, oh, Darren.
Hey, yeah. Thank you for stating what you expect for working group adoption. I like it. I think it's going to make my network better, my social network, and the networks that I work on in my day job. So keep it up.
Thanks, Aaron. See, that was a good example. He said why he likes this. He, of course, agreed with me, which is always a good thing. I'm a little disappointed that he didn't get up to come to the meeting in person, but
I am. I'm just trying to find the room. The trams brought me to the wrong spot this morning.
Yeah. The tram, yeah. Okay. Jim.
Jim Guichard. So I figured I should stand up as AD and say something. So I just wanted to let the working group know that I'm fully supportive of this. I've had conversations with working group chairs. We've talked about this approach, how we think it might improve not just the quality of the documents, but the speed at which we can get this work through the IETF process. So, the more work that's done in the working group by the people that are passionate about the technology, the easier my job is. Because, I've always said that I don't want to be the bottleneck to work that comes out of my working group. So I want to be, the person that just checks a few things to make sure it's been done correctly. Just to check a few things to make sure it's been done correctly. So, the more that's done in the working group, following this process, hopefully the quality of the documents will be really solid, and we can work these things through easily. So kudos to the chairs for this. I really like the approach. I like that you're looking at it at a different angle, and I think it should be a success. So thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? And Darren's here, so we're now a complete happy family. Anyone else? Okay. So the last thing, okay, there's someone else on the queue, Rakesh.
Rakesh Gandhi from Cisco Systems. So I also engage in a different working group, IPPM. And what they do is that all the working group that they have, they are automatically added in the agenda, 5 minutes. And each session, they are expected to provide an update. And it triggers discussions, and people come to the mic and comment and stuff like that. So just an example of how IPPM does.
Right, thanks. So what we decided to do in the last sentence that I didn't put in the slides is we're going to require everyone in every working group draft to give us an update, yes, at every meeting, or before every meeting, I should say. That doesn't mean that we want you all on the agenda, but it means that we want you to provide an update. So in fact, we have the updates that people provided and that we want to show. You want to go through these? Or? Okay, so we have one new working group document that we adopted recently, and we had progress the compression draft out of the working group. The AD, in this case Gunter, has it, and I think there was a revised AD provided a couple days ago. We're just working on that process, and we hope that this will be done soon. So yeah.
One correction of the slide, the draft has been updated.
Yes, the draft has been updated, correct. So we asked the working group to provide updates, and we sent a link, and you can go to the link that is up there. So this is the status that people provided. So you can look at it. Unsurprisingly, many people say that their draft is ready for a working group last call. We will go back and look at these and make sure that, again, there's engagement, that there has been interest. We might ask some of you to go back to the working group and discuss some things, or at least make sure that there's still that interest. One of the drafts, for example, the second one there, the Spring BFD draft, that we had already, there has been discussion on the list. Shepard Ketten was assigned. He's been discussing a lot of the changes with Greg. So we should start the working group last call for that one, hopefully next week or the week after that. So please, when you get back, look at your email, and we will start discussing the Spring BFD. Some of the other ones we have, as chairs, we had started looking at them. We will want some engagement in some of them. So we will discuss that with the authors as we go by. The last one, for example, at the bottom, the PathMTU, whereas our policy, that's a brand new draft. So they have been already, discussing some of the changes that or some of the comments that were brought up at adoption, and we'll see how these continue. Now, I want to, well, there was a lot of update or a lot of detail. You can go read all that in the SRv6 path segment draft. All of this was on the list. So we hope and we expect that people are reading those exchanges. Bruno was looking at the document and making comments. And there was exchange between him and the authors and a couple of other people. So we expect that you guys are looking at this as well. And there is still a long list of draft authors who didn't provide updates. Now, we're going to have a presentation today from the security draft, which, as you know, it's a high priority for the working group. And we already mentioned the compression draft, but the others didn't. So this is not meant to be, shaming or anything like that, because we don't necessarily expect every draft to make progress at every IETF. But it would be nice, to at least get an update. Yes, we still care. We're still working on it. Whatever it is. I do want to point out the Yang drafts. There are 2 Yang drafts in there. I think they actually expired recently. In general, the theme about working group engagement is that if the working group is not engaged, then it means people don't care, right? Then it probably shouldn't be a working group item anymore. In the case of the Yang modules, there are a couple of modules in other working groups that depend on them. In other words, people are waiting for us to do some work. So we will be discussing with the authors of these modules to see if they are still interested in continuing. If not, we will put a call out for alternate authors so that we can continue this work. Again, because this is one of those that other people are waiting for. Loa or Jim, who's in the Jim? Yeah.
I thought Loa was in the queue, but anyway, Jim Guichard. I do want to highlight this because, one of the things as AD that I've been trying to figure out is, how can I move documents through the queue when they come to me quicker? And one of the ways that I can do that is understand what's been going on with that document as it goes through the working group process. And obviously what I do now is I follow the mailing list, I look at the documents and so forth, but it would be much easier if I can look to say, okay, here's an update on where this document's at in the process and what's causing it to be delayed, and what are the issues. So having, just simply a very simple update on that document to say, no progress because whatever, it really helps me at the end of the day to know the history of the document when it comes to me, and that gives me a lot less work to do at the end point, and then hopefully it allows me to move the document a lot quicker. So I hope that this process that we've got in place now is going to allow us to, at each of the meetings to look at all the documents that are working group documents and understand clearly where we're at in the process. And if there's no movement on that document for 1 or 2 cycles, it gives us some red flags to some degree to go and look and say, okay, why is this document moving? And there might be perfectly valid reasons, but if that reason is, well, no one cares, then that's part of why we're doing this process. So I just wanted to highlight that. So I do encourage people to at least give those updates so we can move things through quicker.
Yes, thank you. So this is the first time we do this spreadsheet. The intent is that we will have in there the history, right? So you can go look at what happened at 121, 22, 23, et cetera, in the one document and see sort of that history going back.
And the spreadsheet is public, so you can access it. And eventually we'll add the URL in the useful URL for the working group.
Yes.
So that Jim could access it easily.
Correct. Yeah. So we'll make sure that it's on the data tracker page for the working group. So if no one has any comments, we're going to go on with the agenda. We're done with the first part, and let's get to work. So Nick, you're up with the security. Security is a high priority, so there you go.
All right. So as was mentioned, I did not provide a formal update to the list. That's mea culpa. We have actually been working on this quite a bit. There we go. Okay, so as some may remember, we had this was adopted after IETF 120. There was a significant amount of feedback that we got, which was all very good and useful. So in taking a lot of that feedback into consideration, we went through and did a whole bunch of refactoring. So there's changes that were posted, I believe, mid-October that gave us the -01 version that's up there now. Within that, we addressed the major issues that came on the list. I think we hit pretty much all of them, if not pretty close. We cleaned up the introduction. We refactored a bunch of the threat modeling to make it a little bit easier to consume, a little more logical in the way it's set up. We cleaned up section 711, which was pointed out to us as sort of clunky. We also made a point to create relations to other works that were mentioned in the feedback, so that it's not a document that tries to recreate a lot of things that already exist. We're just pointing to other things that are relevant, which makes it a little bit easier to read, I think, too. We refined the document scope, which also was a little too big, and we made a almost uncountable amount of editorial edits. So there was a lot of things that needed to be fixed there. So I would encourage folks to read 01 while it's out there. Further effort, I really need more feedback on this. One of the things that came up yesterday in the SRV6 Ops working group was that there are some potential benefit to be had by perhaps having some folks that are writing SRV6 protection drafts, read this, give some input, and then perhaps we can learn something from those as well, and then maybe even reference those. That's a question I actually have for the group is, do we want to wait to reference those, or do we want to just use them and see what we can, see what overlaps there? And we want to add some reference tables. That's something that was mentioned by more than one person for the threat modeling that we haven't actually done yet, but that's actually on the list. So next steps. My one primary question is, do we want to make mention of RFC 9602 and the SID space draft as relevant? I think probably yes, but question for the group and feedback. We need feedback. We got really good feedback after 120. I'm hoping to get similar feedback after today. There is actually a -01 that is not published that has some more stuff in it too, which you can find in the current repo listed there. You can diff it against what's there. There's some changes in there, and we'll continue to edit that as well. Pull requests welcome, and reviewers hereby solicited and encouraged.
Suresh, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, Nick. So yes, I think it should get added. That's the main purpose of the prefix. So I think it should get added. I checked the draft; it wasn't there, so I didn't realize you wanted a PR. So, but I'll send you a PR.
I mean, either way, if PRs works for you, I'll gladly take it.
Sure. Yeah, I can certainly do that. And I think it's I think the wording needs to be a bit careful, but I think it should be there, right? Because you need to figure out how it interacts with the other things you're talking about, right?
Yes.
And is it additive? Is it an alternative? So I think that's probably you need to think about it, but I certainly think it needs to be there.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
So just a quick comment, please, and I'm going to ask you, please reflect any discussions on the GitHub on the list.
Yes.
Since maybe not everyone is, following the repository, and the list is still the canonical place, right?
Yeah, so Rishnan. So my idea was to actually send something in the email and also put it in a PR saying, hey, put it in this PR, and then put the URL.
Perfect. Yeah, general comment, not just for this.
Yeah, I drove here. +1 to that, please include. Also, the idea of using this 5F plus an operator using their own prefix. What is the interaction between the two? So I think we have to be a little bit more explicit with respect to that. So definitely we cannot ignore that. And one thing maybe to the chairs as well, should we get an early SecDir review, especially because of the threat model and the language that we use? Are we using the right terminology and higher framework? I think getting an early idea from a security expert would be better at this stage, even though while we are still working on it. Thoughts on that?
So yeah, I think, yeah, definitely we should get an early review. I think the only question in my mind is how early do we want it? I mean, we'll definitely have one before or around working group last call, for example, but we're at version 1, so I don't know. Maybe we should talk about that if we do it now or we do it the next version or somewhere around that. Yeah, okay.
My only comment was only because of the terms that we are using, on path, off path. I'm just a little bit worried that, like, at a very high level, getting that is the framework right rather than focusing on the content.
Yeah, and that's something actually that we iterated over quite a bit. It was a lot of discussion within the team what model to use to build that. And my security operational experience is more tactical. So we were looking for something that we could repurpose that was formalized, and we went with the ANSI model because it actually seemed to fit the best. But I would like more feedback on that.
Okay, great. We can request a review from Security Directorate and target it at that so that they focus on that part of the document.
Okay.
Yes. Any more questions, comments? People who want to volunteer as extra reviewers?
Please. More people read it, the better. All right, got one.
Okay, got one. Suresh, great. 2, Darren.
Yay. Get one more. We got a pattern.
Boris?
Yeah, I will review it too, surely.
Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nick.
My name is Zafar Ali. I'm going to present circuit style segment routing policies draft. This is an informational draft, and I'm going to do it on behalf of my co-authors. So first of all, going back to some discussion that Alvaro was mentioning, so I did a very quick search on the mailing list. There are at least 60 related discussion on this this draft on the mailing list, at least 60 references. So there has been discussion, and there has been also engagements off the list as well, or discussions with folks. And I'm going to go over some of the details, but based on the feedback that has been received, what we did, the changes in Ref 3 is including handling of the L3 bundle interfaces. And here what we said in the draft that for circuit style policies, the bandwidth accounting has to be done on the bundle member, not at the L3 level. And also the circuit style policy needs to be pinned to a member link. This has to do with all the managing bandwidth aspects or bandwidth guarantees aspects related with circuit styles. And that is the second set of changes, because there was quite a bit of discussion on how to protect circuit style traffic in case of link congestion, or this is a QoS question, so many of the aspect of QoS applies. And but there was some discussion on and off the list. We had a call with Sasha during the IETF week to discuss one of his comments. which we still need to work on, which we are going to have more discussion with him. We can certainly bring that discussion to the list as well and provide a summary, and make the document complete. Again, request as usual, like what Alvaro was saying, yes, please review, please send comments. We are looking for feedback. It's informational draft, so it just clarifies how you can use existing mechanisms to create circus-style policies in this. So I mean, we did do one job is updating that spreadsheet. So, and yes, we are looking or requesting working group last call. We think that this has been stable, but consistent to what Alvaro is saying. Yes, please review, please do the work. We are here to address any comments that are pending. So welcome any questions and also welcome engagement on the list, especially on the list.
Any comments or questions? Anyone want to look up from their computer long enough to volunteer to review this document? Okay, great, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go, yeah, there has been some discussion on the list. We're going to have a reviewer, so this is good. If, as we move forward, as we said before, what we're going to look is at engagement and then start looking for a shepherd for this document. So if any of you want to volunteer, not necessarily now, but if you want to think about it and send us an email, please think about that too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Wu Changcheng. I present this draft shortly. In fact, we provide a very detailed slides, but as we discussed just now, we may need only update the draft. So the draft give a basic solution. We would like to use DHCP server treat SF6 locator as a prefix in a prefix pool to distribute those locators. We give the basic extension to DHCP v6. We defined the encapsulation format, and this format have been confirmed by DHC working group. And it can be used in the DHCP PD server application scenario and the relay agent application scenario. The main update is here. We have done the interoperation test in our lab. The routers from H3C and the SD1 gateway from RISCOM, we run the solution in our lab. It works very well and improve the efficiency dramatically. So now we have updated the draft according to all the comments we received, and the running code verified the solution is valid. So co-authors believe it's ready for working group last call. So we would like to request the last call. Thank you. Any question?
So how many people have read this draft? Great. So, we realize that not everyone's going to have this type of deployment in the network. Still, please look at the draft for sanity checking. The big part of this draft is the definition of the DHCP6 option, which of course is not something that we typically do in Spring, but this has already been looked over by the DHC working group to sanity check the options and make sure that they look good. They have given the okay. Please take a look from the Spring point of view of does the mechanism make sense? Do you see any holes operationally or from a security point of view? So this is the point where you volunteer to review the draft as we walk it to the next stage of the process. Not everyone at once, because it's hard to write all the names in one shot. Darren, great, Darren. Darren is doing so much today. Nick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi everyone, it's Jiamin from China Mobile. What I'm going to talk about is the ISA visit context indicator sets for ISA aware services. We previously have a presentation about this draft at IETF 117. It's been a long time, so let's have a review on it. Next slide. The ISA aware service is a service function node that is fully capable of processing ISA traffic. It can process the ISA information in the packets it receives. And .an is defined in the draft named ISA service programming for ISA aware services function, but is insufficient to convey the information of service granularity. For example, the different service requirement of users. Next slide. Therefore, we introduce the ISA v6 context indicator sets. It's a new variant of end.an behavior. This kind of sets could indicate context for ISA aware services. We divided the variants into two categories, static and dynamic mode, and introduced new forwarding behaviors to obtain the corresponding context. The static context indicator set is associated with a certain context. One set could indicate one specific context, such as a specific virtual system, a specific VPN instance. It's a one-to-one mapping, so we call it the static context indicator. Well, the dynamic one is associated with a set of contexts. For example, indicating a series of virtual system or VPN instance. It's a one-to-many mapping. This kind of sets need to coordinate with additional context information, like VPN instance or something that could reflect the different service requirement. With the cooperation between this indicator and additional context information, a service node could choose a specific service. That's why we call it a dynamic indicator. And according to the position this context information could be carried, we further divided the dynamic indicator sets into four subtypes, just like the four endpoint behavior shown in the slide. And they stand for arguments in set, SRH tag, SRH TLW for context, and new option in DOH respectively. Next slide, please. Here we can see the pseudocode of static context indicator. When SRv6 node N receive a packet with IPv6 destination address S, and this is also a local n.an.ci.i set for device N associated with a local context C. The device N will set associated context or packet to C, and performing corresponding service. After that, performing SRv6 process decrement IPv6 hop limit and the SL by 1 and update IPv6 destination address with next in segment list. As for dynamic ones, the line S12 in pseudocode of the static context indicator is replaced by 4 lines in the bottom right. Associated context is set by using variable context information carried in packet and performing corresponding service. If the information could not be understood, device N will send the ICMP packet to source node and drop this packet. This is also the answer to the question in IETF 117. Next slide. This time we added a new use case to state the necessity of extending end.an, and we also described the implementation status of this scheme. Next slide. In the data center, we often to differentiate different tenants because even though the traffic of two tenants with same destination need to pass through the same service function, such as a firewall, they require different services. Therefore, sub-interface bound to VPN instance and the VCs are used to differentiate multi-tenants information. Well, with the emergence of SRv6, its inherent programmability makes it suitable for SFC orchestration. However, the end.an falls short in communicating to service node the specific service that the packet requires. Therefore, it is of significant important to extend and specify end.an and to achieve the purpose of identifying tenants. For example, the static context indicator sets of different values could be mapped to different VCs. At the high end, there's different sets can be directly orchestrated into SFC instantiated by TE policy. This means even if user A and user B both have to take the same path, their traffic need to be steered into different TE policies because the service required by most users may vary. Next slide. Well, if we use dynamic ones, their TE policies could be the same because the identifier to differentiate tenants is in IPv6 header or other extension instead of states. For example, the identifier could be ARN ID. It is generated according to users' service subscription information and network information, and is added to a packet on user edge or network edge. The gateway of data center could encapsulate SRv6 header according to this ID, and thus guide the traffic to a series of value-added service, such as virtual firewall, intrusion prevention system, and antivirus. This device can extract more multi-tenant ID from position specified by forwarding behavior and .an.ci.d. So there's two examples. It can be seen that static sets consume more TE policy resource and sys resource, but it does not have high requirements for service nodes. While the dynamic approach is more resource efficient, but it may increase the length of header and require service nodes to have the ability to extract identifiers. So both of the two have their advantage and disadvantages. You can choose according to the actual scenario. Next slide. The static context indicator has been implemented on H3C Conware v7, and the implementation level is production. Then we will further begin to test after 2025. The test will cover devices from multiple vendors such as Huawei, H3C, NICE Focus, Venus Tech, and DB App Security, etc. Then we will start commercial employment after December 2025. Next slide. That's all my presentation. Any question?
Go ahead.
It's Jim Guichard. Thank you for the work. Just one observation, and actually this came up in SRV6 Ops yesterday as well. There seems to be some renewed interest in the service programming document because you've clearly got a dependency on that. So my question to you would be, have you or any of your authors reviewed the current version of the service programming document? And if not, can you do so and provide comments on the list? Because you have a dependency on that document. And I noticed on the agenda, there's another presentation that looks like that's got a dependency on it as well.
Thank you.
Hello, Daniel Bernier, Bell Canada. So if you want to talk about the service programming, you can ping me. I'm part of the co-authors. One question I had, have you investigated the complexity of having to keep mapping those things, those translation or the context ID? Or, and how does it actually impact performance at that case? Because I think over time it gets, if we start keeping adding those things and it's gonna, I think it's gonna overpopulate the complexity. At some time that I was talking yesterday in SRV6 Up, some of those discussions right now on the mapping in a function is really a local operation. So I don't know how in time it's going to get from a management perspective and making everybody align on the same IDs. The question was actually, have you looked at the implication or?
I think we can discuss it later in the email. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, let's move on to the next presentation. No, that's not the right presentation. No, we're doing the format 6.
Morning, everyone. I'm Guozhen and come from Telecom. And the title of draft, my presentation is for map 6 segments for IPv4 service delivery over IPv6 only underlay network. Firstly, I'd like to introduce the overview of the draft. For map 6 segments is a new type of segment for segment routing. They run in P nodes and provide support for implement IPv4, IPv6 conversion function based on address mapping rules in multi-domain IPv6 only underlay network. It is proposed in draft IETF V6 Ops framework MD IPv6 only underlay, and the draft was firstly submitted on September 12th, 2023. The current version is 3. Secondly, I'd like to introduce the background of the draft, multi-domain IPv6 only. In the framework, it proposed a framework for deploying IPv6 only as the underlying multi-domain networks. In this framework, V4 packets will be statements translated or encapsulated into IPv6 ones for transmission across multi-domain IPv6 only underlay. It include address mapping rule. It is used by the English PE to generate IPv6 source and destination address from the IPv4 source and the destination address. So we define a new seed. The seed consists of a locator, function, argument, where the address is encoded in the L, most signification bits of the seed, followed by F bits of the function and a bit of the argument. In the locator field, it has the poison function, which is unique in the SR domain. It is used to identify the node that instantiate the 4map6 seed. In the function field, it is identifies the behavior bound to the 4map6 seed. The argument field contains the behavior identity of whether the state length encapsulation or translation is performed at the point at the IPv4 address associated with the PE node. In addition, we define a new BGP prefix seed attribute extension TLV in the SR6 service. TLV is to implement seed signaling for the 4map6 service of the SR6 service. In general, 4map6 seed nodes operate in the pairs. For a particular data stream, one node is in the ingress PE donated by PE2, and another is the egress donated by PE2. Each PE maintains a mapping rule database. The table entries in the MD database consists of IPv4 address prefix and IPv6 mapping prefix, and the encapsulation or translation processing way of the IPv4 packets. Before transmitting a IPv4 packet from from PE1 to PE2, the address mapping rule corresponding to its IPv4 destination address needs to be transferred from PE2 to PE1. The update since IETF 120, we illustrate IPv4, IPv6 address mapping and packet transformation from the perspective of SRv6. And the new seed mainly deal with how to generate new IPv6 headers based on the information of IPv4 packets. And the draft reference to IETF v6 ops framework as the main framework document. The design of this draft supports the scenario in the section of the framework. Okay, next step, we will further refine the document and welcome the comments at set. Oh, there's a mistake. It is should be the prepare for new version for IETF 122. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Comments, questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Li Yan coming from China Mobile. I'm very glad to do the presentation on behalf of all the co-authors. The topic name is Encoding Network Slice Identification for SRv6. Please help to move to the next page.
You have slide control if you want to control the
Okay.
slides, you can do it yourself.
Okay, I can control. Thank you. This is the background of this draft. As we all know, according to the current IETF network slice solution, the slice identifier is used as a method to identify network slice in the data plane. So this draft describes a method to encode the slice ID in the outer IPv6 header of an SR domain. And we believe that it is more friendly to devices with limited performance. And what I want to mention is that here we call the slice identifier slice ID, but in the latest TIS document, maybe it can be also referred to an RPID. Later, we will update the document to align with the TSWG. To clearly describe the solution, this draft uses the SLID to prevent the slice identifier or NRP identifier. And here we use the SPI to prevent the slice ID presence indicator. This picture shows the detailed process of this solution. For the ingress PE of the SR domain, when encapsulating the outer IPv6 header, the SLID and the SPI are both encoded in the source address. And what the P device need to do is to check the SPI firstly. If it indicates the presence of an SLID, then it should pass the SLID from the source address and forward the packet according to the slice indicated by the SLID. And for the egress PE, I think that there is no change in its processing. It's okay to perform normal decapsulation. This page introduces the specific settings for SLID and SPI. Here we propose two methods for SPI indication. The first one is to indicate directly through some bit signal, and the position of the SPI bit can be planned or governed by local policies such as the traffic class field in the IPv6 packet header. And the second one is to use a special prefix for identification. This method relies on the network planning. We should reserve certain specific prefix for network slice. And we think that no matter which method is used, the rules within the SR domain must be unified. Here is an example for the source address planning. First is the slice prefix, which is the same as the SPI prefix described on the previous page. And the second is the node ID, which is used to distinguish different devices. Finally, there is the SLID. Here we can divide it into two parts. For example, 4 bits are used to extend the functionality. For example, to indicate whether the packet must be forwarded strictly using the network resource associated with the slice ID. And the other 28 bits are used to carry the slice ID value. So here the combined slice prefix and the node ID constitute a routable prefix, which is advertised through the IGP. This is a use case of how to encapsulate and forwarding the packet in the network. I think it's not. I think it's same with the previously introduction. So I will skip this. The current situation that we have already tested the solution for interoperability in China Mobile's library, and the detailed version numbers of the tested routers are as follows. Here are H3C, Huawei, ZTE, and RIG routers. And also, it has been tested in 2024 NTAC test with the reference version being 07 at that time. And this all the presentation, and the next step we would like to hear the advice from the WG and to improve the documents. And also we would like to update the terminology in the document, just have mentioned from slice ID to NRP ID. So any questions, comments are welcome. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will continue with the second draft. The topic is about the LLDP extensions for SRv6. We know that the deployment of SRv6 is becoming widespread, and besides supporting SRv6 on forwarding devices, there are also scenarios where the host devices need to support SRv6. However, usually host devices do not support dynamic routing protocols such as IGP or BGP. So SRv6 information include the routing advertisement can only be implemented through the static configuration. So the key issue is that if there are a large number of host devices, then the static configuration becomes very inconvenient, especially when the SRv6 on the host changes. The static configuration also needs to be updated accordingly. So the purpose of this draft is to propose a solution to replace the dynamic protocol for advertising SRv6 routing dynamically. So here we think that LLDP is a good choice. This is the simple proposal about the solution. I will skip this. And this page detailed the extension for LLDP. Here, I want to mention is that here we elaborate two subtail, the SRv6 capability and SRv6 locators. And I just realized that maybe the SRv6 capability is not so necessary as the locator, because the main purpose of this document is to advertise the routing of the SRv6. So maybe next version we can update this to the draft. And what this page want to mention is that first the subtail waveformat we can refer to the current RFC, such as the is extension for SRv6 9352. Also, it can refer to OSPF extension. I think it's not important. We can decide the detailed format of this subtail. And the important thing is that where we put this subtail V2. Here we draw it on the left of the slide as the IEEE 802.1 defined the LLDP TLV belongs to IETF. It's identified by the OUI value. Here is the 005E. And the subtype under this OUI should be newly defined for this extension. So we think that maybe we can define a new subtype for this extension. This page is similar to the previous page. This is the precise example for advertising SRv6 locator routes. The most important is that the host can advertise the locator information through the LLDP protocol, and the access devices can learn it and also can advertise it to the IGP domain. Thanks for Joe's comments. I think we can refine the description of the chapter 2. Now it's not very clear to elaborate the purpose of this draft, so we can revise it for better understanding. And also it includes the clarification on the management domain that the host belongs to. And we think that this is the 0.0 version. There will be a lot of work to do to improve it. And we also would like to hear more opinions and comments from you. That's all. Thank you.
Daniel Bernier, Bell Canada. It's actually good work. We have an implementation of something similar. We probably should think independently. One question is if you're trying to redistribute your LLDP into the IGP, whatever it's OSPF or ISIS, why do you need to carry the TLVs? Why don't you just do the TLV adaptation when you do the redistribution?
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that you have the similar implementation. but I'm not very sure what's your key point of the question. I
So
tried to.
in your implementation, in your document, you said that you have you had in your TLV, you added the attributes to support the IGP sub TLVs. The question is, if you're doing redistribution, why do you need to carry those, or you just not generate them at the IGP? But we can do it on the list in the
Okay, I understand you. And this is because the first page we have elaborate that between the host device and the access device, there is no IGP deployment because the dynamic protocol is much more complicated for the host. So usually, I think the host do not have this condition to deploy it. That's why we use the LLDP to do this. I'm not sure whether I answered your question.
No, but it's okay. We can do it in the mailing list.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I joined from Telecom. We can have introduced one draft as distribute the SRv6 locator via the DHCP. So I want to ask what's the reason and what's the advantage to use LDP to distribute such information?
Okay, thank you. I think the advantage of the LDP is that it's a more widely deployed protocol than the IGP or BGP, and I think it's much more easier.
No. I don't mention the IGP or BGP. I mentioned that we can have mentioned the. I mentioned that there is another method use the DHCP to distribute the SRv6 locator. So here you just propose another solution, use the LDP to distribute such information. I want to know what's the advantage and what's the main purpose to use the different protocol to provide the similar information.
Oh, okay. I try to answer you. The original scenario we found about this problem is that in the data center network for the cloud host, maybe it's a server and there are large scales. And in this situation, I think that the LLDP is widely deployed, but the DHCP, I'm not very sure if it's okay. If I didn't answer your question, maybe you can send it to the list.
Just a quick feedback. So in fact, you may have some application scenario and you don't have a DHCP server. At that moment, LLDP will be good solution. Yeah, it's for different application scenario.
For my opinion, I think the DHCP may be more popular protocol. But I think if you want to put for the such solution, you in your draft use the compare the existing solution and provide the what scenario or which scenario your protocol can be used.
Okay, I agree with you. It's different scenarios to deploy it. So I think maybe there are different scenarios, different solutions based on the different scenarios. So maybe we can elaborate on the document. Thank you.
Okay, Sasha, you're next.
Yeah, I just want to note that LSDP is not an IETF protocol. It is an IEEE protocol. It's owned by another standard defining organization. So I'm not sure how we can handle this proposal, taking its technical merits aside. How what should be the procedure for modifying the protocol that has been defined by another?
So in general, and
to the
You can
chair.
answer that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You have experience with that, I see. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, AC Lindum Lab. We have a BGP draft. You can, the IEEE already has an OUI for the IETF to put information in LLDP, so we can extend it. That's fine. And we have a BGP discovery draft that kind of has, we have to get back to it or drop it or something, but it does something simpler for BGP peer discovery.
And just to add to that, the LSVR working group has been working on discovery as well with LLDP, and actually IEEE has extended LLDP to LLDP version 2, because as you put information into LLDP, and if it doesn't fit on the MTU, you have, some issues, right? So now with LLDP version 2, there's a little bit more wiggle room there. But yes, let's figure out if this is something we want to do. And as AC said, there is a way to do this if we want to do it.
But I have another question. My question is, I see the SR6B6 capability, and so that if you need that coming from the host to the access device, but I don't understand just the locator. Isn't this just, isn't that, SRv6, it's just another IP6 address. Why doesn't neighbor discovery just work for the address itself and the locator? And that's my question.
Okay,
IPv, the base IPv6 neighbor discovery protocol.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a very, very good question. We have also considered the discovery protocol, and we also have compared the LDP and the discovery protocol, and it's just because that we think that maybe the LDP is more simpler and more fundamental, and also the ND document is ready. We have prepared, and because the IETF submission is locked, so it hasn't been submitted. But we still think there are separate protocols for different scenarios. Maybe we can choose which one to use, and under the condition of the current network situation. So very, very thank you, AC. And also, I'd like to thank you for the BGP discovery document. We have referred to this document for our idea to extend the LLDP. Thank you very much.
So Sasha, do you have something else you want to?
If I understand correctly what has been said, why the real question, probably technical question, is why not to advertise the necessary information and some extension to router advertisement protocol, which is part of NDP and which is an IETF protocol.
Sorry, I didn't catch you very well. Could you please discuss it on the mail list?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Just to emphasize what Sasha said, the host is probably already using Slack or DHCP with 6 to get its address extended. It's extendable. We know how to do it. It's used with Slack again to kind of create the address. It's there. It's working. It's IETF. You can even retrieve it in NGP if you think it's a good idea. Much better than doing any LLDP in this case.
So let's follow up on the list. Good questions, good engagement. This is what we want to see, right? Interest, questions. Why not this other approach? Whatever. So all this is good. Thanks. So we're going to move to the next presentation.
Okay, thank you for your interest.
Hi everyone, I'm Kagawa from NTD, and I would like to introduce SRv6 SFC architecture with SR aware functions. The background here, and as you may know, SRv6 service function chaining realizes traffic steering through various ordered sets of network functions. For example, a firewall, RBS, IDS, NAT, DBI, and so on. And in the current SRv6, we need to use SFC proxies like AS and AD, AM are necessary to apply network functions. And uh, and to realize our concept of SRv6 SFC architecture, there are several protocols that have been standardized or proposed as a internet draft. And for SR policy management, we can use PSEP or BGP SR policy. And on the other hand, we can apply the SR policy to the customers' traffic using BGP flow spec. And there are another internet draft about BGP service segment that can be a network service advertisement. This is the our concept of SRv6 SFC architecture. Our motivation is that providing comprehensive management and simplicity for SRv6 SFC. And about control plane, there are a PSEP in the left side line. We can apply the SR policy using PSEP into the source node SRv6 endpoint. And we can use BGP, a BGP flow spec into the source node in order to apply the SR policy to customer A or customer B, and so on. And we can maybe correct network function status using BGP LS extensions for service segment, but we cannot apply the configuration or gather capability about the SR aware functions. And also in the SR service programming, there are no specification about end-to-end right now. Yeah, this is more detailed version, and yeah, in the right under the corner, there are SFC proxies and SR not aware functions. We need to use SFC proxy, but our concept is not using SFC proxy and gather the SR aware functions information from the function node using BGP LS extended version and apply some and according to the information from the network functions, we can pass computation for more specific customers' needs. And so our main motivation is that making some very centralized SRv6 controller for control the SFC. And there are two specific problems. One is that no standardization for configuration of network functions. And on the other hand, there are no standardized end-to-end specification for SR-aware network function. Conclusion, we want to make some centralized SRv6 network controller, and there are in the deep brain there are no SR-aware K end-to-end specification. Yeah, and also as control plane, there are no way to gathering functions status and apply them into the SR functions. Yeah, that's all. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. Okay. Greg Mirsky, Ericsson. The question I have is how their active Service 6 OAM will behave in this environment.
How?
Because their idea of active OAM to be useful is to have the same encapsulation as your data packets. So which I can imagine will mean that these packets from a Service 6 OAM will be passed to the service functions. So do you envision that service functions will be required to handle a Service 6 OAM?
In the last IETF hackathon, we used some IOM for SRv6, but we need some more specific information or behavior for network functions. So, sorry, can I discuss later or in email?
Yes, I can point you to the document on SFC and SH OAM because there might be you'll find some useful information what has been done for NSH because yes, this is a common problem for a service function because service functions are not expected to handle their transport, so to speak, or underlays OAM. But at the same time, they need to be fate sharing, traversing the same sequence of service function forwarders. So there's something that you can look at. And yeah, I'll welcome discussion on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you. As you are from Telecom, from your diagram, we can see you use the BGP protocol and the PCI protocol for northbound interaction. But as of now, there is already the PCI protocol can accomplish all your functions. For example, PCI protocol also has the PCI flow spec specification and has been published as RFC. And the PCI also provided the PCI LS document solution. It is also the working group document. So would like to consider unify the northbound protocol to accomplish the communication between the controller and the entity, network entity.
Oh, so sorry, I didn't understand.
I just want to, you currently you use two kind of protocol to finish accomplish the communication between controller and the network device.
Yeah.
You select the BGP, LS, and the PCI protocol. But currently, I think the PCI protocol only can accomplish all the functions that you mentioned. For example, the PCI has also the PCI LS specification. It is, yeah, but it, yeah, we can put forward it. And the PCI also has the specification protocols and being updated the RC. So what I think is that if we use just one protocol for the northbound communication, we can simplify the implementation of the controllers. So what's your consideration for the future for future development?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know about the PCI areas, so I will research about that.
Yeah, I think you can check it later. Okay.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Zafraeli and Cisco Systems. So coming back to the O&M and respond to Greg, so there is a draft that I have in spring about the SFC or Service Programming O&M. It's been dormant for some time, but let's revise that and happy to work on that with you, Greg. Thank you.
It's a busy day for me. Daniel Bernier, Bell Canada. quite interesting from work. Two comments. So you will be doing BGP LS extensions, augmentation for the functions.
Oh, so it's, oh, sorry.
So you're expecting to augment with even more data values, because when you get to a function,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things to carry to be able to know what a function is actually, the state of a function, which goes back to my other piece. So, well, you want to use BGPLS to configure a function. Is it what I understood?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Have you looked at functions?
Oh, sorry, could you repeat it?
Have you looked at the network functions you have to plug in? It's the reason it's really not it's going to be an insane amount of work in my mind to try and push everything that a network function that we have in the network has to be done through BGP LS extensions. There's a lot of attributes. That's the logic of the proxy sometimes. So, and also the other comment I would have is that you expect that network functions that we already have trouble getting NSH or even our service 6 working will now support BGP LS. That's my big two caveats with that architecture. Maybe we can take it offline here or in the mailing list, but those were the ones, like the amount of attributes we need to carry now in BGPLS for functions, which are not just pure forwarding. And then the fact that most of those network elements don't even care about BGPLS or the current control plane you have. But I can take that on the list as well. So.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't understand well, but we would like to use BGPLS for gathering the information about network function status or some behavior of that network functions, and also configure them via BGPLS, because some in the network functions, there are many customer-specific configuration. Like for customer A, the firewall use this ACL list, and for other customers, we need to apply some other configuration about that. So we want to use the BGPLS for configuring that from the controller.
So my comment is go look at the SASE implementation, like secure domain, like the way people do the SASE implementations of functions, the amount of attributes you will need to now carry in BGPLS. You're going to have fun coding for a while, I think. That's my pure comment. It's like, I don't think this is made for this. It's good to discover a function in a network to be part of the overall forwarding domain. But then there's things that are, it doesn't fit in that model as well. It's not the same way to it.
Okay, thank you. Please discuss later. Yeah.
Ketan Talaulikar, Cisco. Just to add to what Dan mentioned, I'm actually one of the co-authors of this BGPLS draft. And we have had similar feedback from a lot of operators. Perhaps something to consider is for even deployment of those network functions, those appliances, you already have some kind of orchestration mechanism, which does, brings up the firewall, brings up the DPI, sees whether it's up and running and all of that. It seems the feedback that I have received is it seems that same orchestration mechanism can easily feed back and give that information, whether it is up, where is it connected, and all of that. So using protocol like BGPLS, yes, that's an option. But what I've heard is that it's easier to do it kind of out of the network protocols via the orchestration mechanism directly. So it's something like that. But I'm happy to discuss further with you offline.
Yeah, there are other ways for configuring something into the network functions, but we would like to use BGPLS because there are some network related things like IPv4 ACLs and IPv6 ACLs and so on. And yeah,
Sure. I would be happy to discuss offline.
yeah, thank you. That's all. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was the last presentation. Thank you to everyone who made comments, who read the drafts, who volunteered to review, who's going to go back to the mailing list and keep showing your interest and engagement. Thank you so much. We'll see you in Bangkok. Well, we'll see you on the list before that, but then in Bangkok. Thank you.
So should I put directly the